everybody. I'm Jesse, and welcome to another edition of Gen X Thinks. And today I'm going to do a comparison about something that we had back in the day, back in the 80s, compared to what its equivalent today. And this time I'm going to do it on video games. How were video games in the 80s? Not only the video games, we all know the technology has improved and all that, but just the entire culture and atmosphere around them, how does that compare to what we see today? Inspiration for this episode of Gen X Thinks goes to @AppliedAdvances. Thank you, and I appreciate you taking the time to leave this idea in the comments. I really appreciate it. I'm going to start this out by talking about my earliest memory of a video game. And it was at a gas station, actually. Back then, there weren't just video game cabinets at arcades. Individual store owners would buy a cabinet and put it in there, just for a place for kids to spend money. So, in this one gas station / convenience store, little mom and pop place, had a cabinet, and the game was called Gorf. And I would go there to get me a soda and a candy bar or whatever, and I would end up playing that game. I remember the cabinet was right there by the door, and I sort of remember the mechanics of the game and stuff. It was like a top-down thing where the enemies came down and your guy went back and forth and you shot them. But the most memorable aspect of the game was that when you lost a life, the game would tell you, "Bite the dust, Space Cadet." In that robot voice, "Bite the dust, Space Cadet." It would make me so mad as a kid. I would get so mad at that game. I'd be over there cussing it, like Yosemite Sam or something. I'm sure the store owner heard me a few times over there getting mad at his arcade cabinet. But man, But I couldn't help it. I love that game. I don't know how many of my quarters I spent on it, but quite a few, I suppose. But that's my earliest memory of a game. When I was a young kid, and I would walk to that store. And then later on, as a young teenager, preteen maybe, and on into my teens, I was able to go to the mall and go to an arcade and play whatever. That's when we would, remember the days when we would crowd around somebody that was going for the high score, and you get to leave your initials, and the top 3 was like the most precious spots, the top 3. The top 1 was the most, but we'd all try to go for the high score so we could leave our initials there, and everyone would see it when they played the game. And I remember crowding around people as they tried to go for the high score, or seeing the crowd, as I was playing or whatever. 2 of my favorite arcade games were Dragon's Lair and a game called Time Traveler. And they were both actually made by the same guy, I learned later. But Dragon's Lair, I don't know how many of you will remember it. I completely sucked at it, but I loved it. It was this cartoon thing, and you just pointed the joystick in a direction and hit a button, and the guy would leap in that direction or swing his sword in that direction or whatever. And you were supposed to save the princess, I think. I never got very far in it because it was, when I first started playing, it was difficult to understand the controls. And the game was expensive. It was like 50 or 75 cents or something. So it wasn't like I had a lot of money to spend on it to get good at it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I love that game, but I never got good at it, and I was just horrible at it the few times that I got to play it. I normally chose, average games that only cost $1 because I could play longer. And then Time Traveler, it was this 3D hologram game that played on a flat cabinet, just like a tabletop. And the buttons were here like this, and the joystick or whatever. But it was a hologram, so the characters actually stood on your tabletop. You know what I mean? It was really cool back then. It was awesome. I've never seen anything like it, and I was like, holy crap! But I think that one was expensive too, and so I didn't play it very much. I might have played it once or twice, but I still remember the visuals of that. and of Dragon's Lair. The visuals stick in my mind of those games. They had the games that you could actually sit on the motorcycle or sit in the car and steer the car. I like those. And then the shooter games, you actually got to hold the weapon, zombies and all that, whatever. Those were good times. But the atmosphere, of going for the high score and the camaraderie, there were other people around you just talking or playing games or whatever. And then I would go to I lived all around the country because my parents moved so much. I would actually go to some arcades that used the tokens. And some of those that use the tokens, when you put your dollar in, they'd give you like 5 or 6 tokens instead of the 4 quarters. But a token spent like a quarter. So you actually got more for your dollar at some of those arcades. Those are the arcades I loved. And I actually remember as the whole video game culture evolved and we stopped playing so much at the arcade. We started getting home consoles and we just didn't go to the arcade so much. It didn't seem like a big thing then, but now that I look back, we actually, we actually killed the arcade business by staying home playing on our Super Nintendo. So I went from that, and I never had a console as a kid. So my first real console, I think when I joined the Army, I bought myself a Sega Genesis. That was my first real console. And I also bought a Super Nintendo later, but the first one I bought was the Sega Genesis. I never did get that CD thing, that add-on. I never did get that. But I remember playing Mortal Kombat in my barracks, during my off time. Finish him! But as video games has evolved, so has the video game culture and everything around it. Now everything's online, massive multiplayer. Back then, if you wanted to play, with somebody multiplayer, then you had to have your friend come over to your house and grab the controller next to you. Which I think there's a lot to be said for that. The camaraderie, the actual physical presence of another person. You could pause the game and, run to the store and get a soda and a candy bar and do, it was more of an entire experience, not just the game. I think that part of it is missing now. That's an important part of the experience that has gone away. And as we evolve through that, and more of the online experience became integrated with the game, less and less personal time was spent together gaming, right? Now, if you go try to play a game, sit down and play a game with somebody, you're interrupting their World of Warcraft session or whatever. It's an interruption. It's not a joining. So, and I think the anonymity of being online has allowed the culture to devolve. Now you're likely to end up watching your corpse getting teabagged by an 8-year-old as he curses like a Nazi sailor. That kind of stuff, that kind of disrespect didn't happen back then in our time. Back when I was playing video games, that kind of disrespect didn't happen. I mean, we would razz each other and stuff. I was actually really good at this wrestling game, WWF, back then. I had a buddy and we would play it together, multiplayer. And the coolest thing about that game was that you could actually play the career and the season multiplayer. So the computer would match you up against computer wrestlers, and you two would vie and fight your way to the top and then go for the title against the computer or your buddy or whoever. It was like an actual season. But for some reason, the way it played out, he would always get the title shot first. So by the time the computer gave me the title shot, he had the belt. Not blowing my own horn or anything, just this one game. I've sucked at plenty of games, but I was just really good at this game. I don't know, the timing of it or whatever just matched my reflexes or something. And the characters we created, mine matched up well against his. But it was, it's too late after you get so far into it for him to redo his whole character, so he was stuck with that one. But so the computer would match us up for the belt is the important part here, and I would razz him because we both knew that I was going to beat him. That's how much better I was at the game than him. And I would tell him, I'm going to knock you out and take your belt, dude. You know it's going to happen. And he'd start talking smack back to me, as we're fighting. We're doing our thing on the screen. And then I'd act like I was mad at him. Man, screw that, dude. I'm going to make you give me that belt. You're going to give it to me. You're going to ask me to take it. You're going to beg me. So because there were different ways you could win. You could win by knockout or submission, or you could pin him. You could pin him to the mat like, WWF. So I'd be telling him that he'd make him give it to me, that I was going to submit him. I was going to grab his ankle or whatever and twist it, and then he'd give up, his character would give up, and he would have no control over it. But I'd make him give me the belt. Oh, I used to razz that dude, and he would get so mad. Those were good days. But it was all good, clean fun, We weren't cussing at each other and calling each other bad names. We were just giving each other shit, in a friendly, comical way, but still getting under each other's skin. It was fun. And that has changed. The razzing and stuff is still there, but the anonymity has taken that to an obscene level. And I don't know. I see that kind of stuff happen on games now, and it just turns my stomach a little bit, because I remember how much fun that razzing used to be for both sides. I mean, my buddy would get mad, but he wouldn't be insulted and, infuriated to the point where he would just be, mad because he lost, not mad because I had called him a bunch of names and done obscene things to his character's corpse while he watched. I was trying to get under his skin, but I wasn't trying to humiliate him and, make him so angry that he didn't want to play anymore. That was not my goal. So that part of it has obviously changed a lot, and I think for the worse. Now, the things that have changed for the better, obviously the technology. I mean, the graphics now and the NPCs, the AI of the NPCs and stuff, that stuff's just amazing. You can completely engross yourself and lose yourself in a game. Forget you're in the real world for a while. And I actually got one of those goggles for Christmas, and those things are pretty neat for those of you who've never worn them. It's just the technology's not quite there yet. It's like a wow factor when you first put it on and you're looking around and you're like, holy shit, this is amazing. And you first experience it, like, it's a virtual world, literally, and it's all around you and you can touch stuff, and it's crazy. But they're just the games and stuff that in the technology inside the world is not up to par yet. It's really cool for a little while, for a few hours, maybe for a week or something like that, a few days, but then it wears off and you're like, do something else. It's not, the game isn't fun. Being inside there is cool, but that wears off quickly. So once they get some Call of Duties and some World of Warcrafts and stuff in there, it's going to be really cool, I think. I don't know. I probably won't be playing it by then, but I haven't literally put that headset on in months. I mean, like 6 or 8 months. It's not that attractive of a thing. Another way it's improved, that video games have improved, is kind of the flip side of the last thing that made it worse, was that connectivity, that internet and the anonymity of the internet and all that, because you can make friends and play with somebody in Australia or Germany or wherever. People can come together from all over the world. Somebody in California can be best friends with somebody in New Jersey or something, and they get together and play every day. And, you couldn't do that back in the day. If your best friend didn't want to play that game or didn't like that game, you were screwed. You had to play it by yourself or with your little brother. And also getting away from the physical cartridges and discs, just being able to download a game, not having to keep all those cartridges and discs around. So that's really neat too. That's a cool thing. Have 15 games or whatever just downloaded into your system, and you don't even need a disc or a cartridge. And then that brings up the question of ownership. Who owns it then? What if they say you can't download it the next time you want to? That can get into a sticky situation there. Or what if some glitch happens and your entire library is deleted? I've read stories about that. That's happened. So that's kind of a give and take there. But that's sort of a really cool evolution that we've got to witness from its very beginnings until now, where it's very mature. The technology has come a long way. I mean, we saw the advent of Pong all the way up till, you know, walking around in a virtual world chasing virtual tigers or whatever, you know. I mean, it's come a long way, and we have been there every step of that way. So I think that's pretty cool. Our generation has ushered this stuff in and carried it along with us the entire time. And I think that's a really cool thing. And I'll leave you there for now. Hopefully I brought back some memories and given you some stuff to think about. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by buying me a cup of coffee, and I'll leave that link down in the description. If you're interested in Gen X gear, swag, or merch, I'll leave that link down in the description as well. We got some pretty cool stuff over there. If you don't want to or can't support the channel in either one of those ways, you can always do so by sharing these videos on your social media. And if you have any ideas for future videos, please let me know down in the comments. This one here was inspired. As you can see, I have no problem bringing your ideas to life on an edition of Gen X Thinks. Please leave any ideas you might have down below in the comments. Thank you, and I appreciate that. And as always, stay frosty, Gen X, and I will see you on the next one.